Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to create a simple database in Microsoft Access. So to start with, you're going to need to make sure you have Microsoft Access installed on your computer. Remember, Microsoft Access only works on Windows computers. If you have a Mac computer like a MacBook, or you are using a different operating system, Microsoft Access will not work for you. Instead, please install Apache OpenOffice and use the database feature from there instead. You can always watch the other video I posted on my CC to go over how to use OpenOffice with databases. Now, for those of you with Windows machines, we're going to take a look at Microsoft Access. So Microsoft Access is the database management software for the Microsoft Office suite. Now, to begin with, you're going to want to create a new blank database. And then you're going to want to choose what you want to name this particular database. We're going to name ours College. Also choose where on this particular computer you would like to save your file. So once you've created your file called College, you're now ready to start working on the database. Now, a blank database in Microsoft Access always provides one default table called Table 1. And this table will have one default field called ID. So the first thing we're going to need to do is change the design of this table so that it will match the first table we need for our lab. You'll see the table we're going to create is going to be called CSCI 100, and it is going to represent our course and will contain all of the student data for students that are enrolled in CSCI 100. So the fields are going to include a student number, a last name, a first name, 3 quizzes, participation, midterm, and final. The first and last name are both going to be short text, so they're going to be text entries. And the remaining student number and grades are all going to be number types. So the first thing we need to do is create this table, CSCI 100. To do that, you're going to need to go back to your database, and you're going to need to change the design of Table 1. To change the design, you're going to want to go to the View button and go to Design View to change the design. The first thing you'll be asked to do is name your table. This is CSCI 100. Once you've typed in the name, click OK. This will bring you to Design View, where you can fill in the field names and data types for each field in your table. The first field currently is ID, and this is an auto number data type. We're going to want to replace this with our first field, which should be student number. So remove the word ID and replace it with student number. Then in the data type, look into the list of options. You'll see this includes short text. This is for short word data. Long text for long word data. There are number type for normal numbers. Large number for especially large numbers in the millions and billions sizes. You also have options for date and time, currency, auto number, so that means it automatically provides a number data for that field, and many others as well. For student number, we're just going to use the number data type. Now with every data type, you can go down to the lower half of the screen to see the more details about that data type, including the field size, format, decimal places, and many others, including things like a default value. The field size indicates what type of number this field can hold. Currently, it says long integer, meaning only positive and negative whole numbers can be entered into the field. This is perfect for a student number, which needs to just be a whole number. However, there are other options in this list as well, including our floating point options, so ones with decimal places, such as single and double. But we will stick to long integer for our current selection because student numbers are larger numbers, so they usually have 6 or 7 decimal digits in them. So long integer is going to work the best. You can also choose whether you want a default value. 0 is usually the most common default values for numbers. Next up, we're going to fill in our other fields. So you'll notice there's a whole list of them. So we'll start with last name and first name. So this is going to be the last name field. And this one is going to be short text. So it's just going to be a word, which is somebody's name. The field size is 255 characters. Then there's first name, which will also be a short text. And then we have all of the grade fields. So there's the quiz 1 grade, which will be a number. There'll be quiz 2. There'll be quiz 3. There'll be participation. There'll be a midterm. And there'll be a final. Now for each of these, we are going to use number. And for this particular lab, I'm just going to use long integer for each of these grades, meaning that the grade is going to be a whole number. So we're just going to round to the nearest percentage. So each of these grades will be given as a percent between 0 and 100 and will be given as a whole number. If you wanted to allow for decimal places in your percentages, you will need to change to the double field size. So once you've filled in all of the field names and their corresponding data types, the last thing you need to do is make sure you've selected a primary key for your table. Remember, a primary key is a field in your table that can be used to uniquely identify each record. Meaning, for every record in your table, that field will have a unique value. For students, the unique field will be the student number. So 2 students can have the same last name, the same first name. They can get the same grade on any of the quizzes, participation, midterm, or final. But every student at the college only will have a unique student number. And that will be the field we use to uniquely identify each student. So to make sure you have the student number selected as the primary key, take a look on the left-hand side. You should see a key here in this particular field. That indicates that it's the primary key. If this key is not on, you can use the primary key button here to turn it on and off. So make sure there's a little key next to student number. You will notice that in my labs and assignments, I always put a star next to the field that should be the primary key. So now that we've filled in all the design for our table, that's the field names and data types, it's time to start adding data. We're going to add 10 pretend students to our class. We're going to try to use realistic names and scores for these students. So meaning we're not going to just name our students A, B, C, D, and we are going to make sure that we give them a realistic range of grades. Students don't just get 100 on every single activity. So we want to be sure when filling in this data that it looks somewhat realistic. So to start filling in the data, you're going to need to change from design view, where we currently are, to data sheet view, where you can enter data. Go to the view button And this time we're going to go to Data Sheet View. Make sure you save your table before you switch over. So now you'll see our table. This line with a star on the side is where we can insert a new record. So this table is currently empty. And you'll see the default values have been filled in for each line in this table. To start filling in a record, I always suggest you start by filling in the primary key. Remember, it needs to be a unique value for every student. So I'm going to give a student number, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That works. Then I'm going to fill in a last name. I'm just going to use my own name, so O'Connor. Then let's say Megan. And then I'm just going to pick some values for these particular fields. So say 78 on quiz 1, 73 on quiz 2, 75 there. Let's give them 80, 79, and say 81. So that's a nice solid B plus A minus type student we have there. So now for my next student, I'm going to give them a different student number and a different name, and I'm going to give them their own set of grades. But this student, I'm going to give a different type of grade. Maybe I'll make them a C student or a failing student. You'll have 10 students in this class, so make sure that you have a nice range of grades. Some students should be failing the activities, others should be passing, and others should be getting high scores on those different activities. Once you've filled in all 10 of your students, we'll then be ready to move on to the next step. And we're back. At this point, you should now have filled in all 10 students' data into your table. You should have a nice range of student data, as you can see here. Some of my students are failing activities, others are passing, and others are getting A+. So now that you have a nice range of data, you're ready to move on to the next step. And that is to create 2 new tables, one for CSCI 101 and the other for CSCI 102. However, we're not going to create these tables from scratch. So if you need to create a completely brand new table, just go to the Create tab and select Table. However, if you have an existing table, you can use this table to create similar tables. For example, CSCI 101 and CSCI 102 are going to have the same fields as CSCI 100. They have a student number, last name, first name, 3 quizzes, participation, midterm, and final. So instead of completely recreating these tables manually, we're going to copy our existing table. So go over to the left-hand side and select your table from the options and select Copy. Now that you copied your table, it's time to paste. So select your area here, right-click, and select Paste. You'll see when pasting a new table, there are 3 options available: structure only, structure and data, and append data to existing table. The structure refers to the design of the table, meaning just the field names and their data types. Structure and data is all of the data in the table and all of the field names and data types. And appending data means you want to add the data to an existing table. Now, for our new tables, we want to use structure only. We want to copy the field names and data types from our table, but we don't want to copy the data because the students in CSCI 100 are not going to be the same students in CSCI 101. So select structure only, and then rename the table as CSCI 101. Once you are happy with the name and your option, click OK. This will create a new table in your database. To open the table, just double-click on the name. You'll see this table has all of the same fields as our previous table, but it does not contain any students because this is a new course and there are currently no students enrolled. To make your second table, you just right-click and paste a second time. Once again, make sure you select Structure Only and rename this table to CSCI 102. Then click OK. You should now have 3 tables in your list. Your CSCI 100 should have 10 students. Your CSCI 101 should have no students, but it should have all of the correct field names along the top. The same with CSCI 102. No students, but it should have all the correct field names along the top. Once you're happy with your tables, it's then time to save your file and upload it to MyCC. To do this, make sure you save and then close each of your tables. You just right-click on the tab to save it and then click the X to close. You should still see all 3 tables listed on the left-hand side here. They're just currently closed for editing. Once you have all of your tables closed, it's then time to close the entire program. Completely close out of Microsoft Access. Make sure you click yes to any save or messages that pop up. And then you are ready to upload your file to MyCC. Remember, you have to completely exit out of Microsoft Access before you can upload the file to MyCC. If the file is opened in Microsoft Access, you cannot upload that file or move it or attach it to any emails. You have to completely close down the database before you can move or upload the file. And that is how to make a simple database in Microsoft Access.